Hi, everybody. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I've got a friend of mine who happens to be my financial advisor, and he's going to just answer some questions without getting too deep into the finances about what he's learned from dealing with retirees, pre retirees, and maybe put some of your fears to rest, put some of my fears to rest. And we'll get to that right after this intro. So thanks everybody for signing in to Before It's Too Late today. I'm Rich, and today you see the person on the other side of the screen here. It's not Robbie. So this is Derek. Derek he just happens to be my financial guy. So because of that, in a minute after I give Derek a chance to introduce himself, I'm going to read a little bit of a disclosure for us so that we keep both Derek and I out of a jam going forward. But Derek, I appreciate you coming on and sharing whatever information we get into in the next 15 or 20 minutes.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Rich. I've followed your channel before it's too late, and I really appreciate your content and your honesty and sincerity. So you and Robbie have done a great job. So I'm just happy to be here today to do a episode with you. And so thanks for having me on.
You bet. You bet. So like I said, let me just read this disclosure real quick. The host of this event, that would be me, Rich, and Derek and Edward Jones. Derek works for Edward Jones. We do have a business relationship, and this event is not meant to be a testimonial provided by Edward Jones, financial advisor, Derek Justice in any way. It's just him being a friend to me and coming on and providing some content that I think would be value to the folks that happen to tune into my channel. So again, Derek, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Rich.
All right. So just to get started, and again, if you guys have watched my channel at all before, I try to keep things pretty casual and informal, and we've talked a lot about retirement prep over the last several months, and without getting specific about anybody's financial situation, if anybody's honest, your finances is what's keeping you from retiring, or should I say keeping you working most of the time. So, and Derek, I think has been a big help to me in preparing me for the next stage of my life. And because he has prepared so many people over his career, I'm sure he has heard every excuse in the book to not retire and every reason to be anxious. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that today. So Derek, when a person gets to be your and my age, right, late 50s, retirement's looming there on the horizon. What do you think keeps people from retiring, maybe besides the finance side of it? I mean, I know you're the financial guy, but you hear it all. So what stops them?
I think, Rich, the thing I find a lot of people, they have a job and they identify with their job and they're afraid of what it could feel like once they separate from their job or retire from their job. And probably in my experience, too many times people have identified way too much with what they do. And I've tried to help people understand, like, your job is what you do, not who you are. And that's hard for people to get past that after 20, 30, maybe 40 years in a field or career. So I think it's the money side is one thing, but I think it's their identity and what they're going to do with their time, and a little bit of a fear factor there of a change in routine, right? So they just don't know what they might. They say, well, I'm going to fish or golf or boat or what have you, but they haven't done that for 30 or 40 years, and they've never had 7 Saturdays in a row where they could sleep in or do something else. And I think it's an opportunity for them to dream a little bit and to talk openly about it with somebody they trust, their spouse, their family, their friends, and to get used to it, because it is a hard transition. But I've been doing this over 28 years now, and I've seen most people transition fairly easily after they retire. But it's just to the point of actually submitting a resignation and getting a date because I've had a lot of people say, well, I'm going to retire in 6 months or I'm going to retire in a year. And I make a little note and I call them 5 months before they are supposed to, or a month before they're going to retire. And I say, hey, aren't you going to retire next month? Maybe we push that back another 6 months. And so I think it's just a little bit of a fear factor, Rich.
Okay. So what do you think? I guess in your experience, then, what is it? Is there one thing that kind of pushes people past that fear? Like, what is it that makes them like, okay, it's time?
I think it could be a couple of reasons. Unfortunately, there could be a triggering event, could be a health related event that pushes them over the edge or over the line to retire. It could be a family event. I had a client a while back. Their spouse was let go from a major company. She was about a year or two from retirement, and they downsized and bought her out. So they gave her a check to leave early, and he was going to work about 2 or 3 more years, but it didn't make sense financially. It worked out if he could retire fairly soon, but it was a triggering event of something happening that was out of their control. Health is
Okay.
typically out of our control. If your company downsizes or right sizes their company, and if you're 59 years old and they say here's a check and we're going to give you early retirement, that's kind of out of their control a lot of times. Sometimes the money is too good to pass up for that lump sum to leave. Um,
Right.
but it's usually something I find that they've something has triggered them in their family and their life. Could be a kid related thing, a grandkid. Maybe they just had a good friend of mine a few years ago. Their first grandchild, arrived, and they were planning on working a little bit more, but then they started missing out things on the grandchild, and they've been working so long to get to retirement that another year wasn't worth it. They wanted to spend time with their new grandbaby. So those are, I think, are easier things to push people over that line to retire. Um,
Okay.
so that's probably one
Yeah,
thing I
I
would.
think yeah, the health part of it, I think, is something that again, when you get to be our age, you start thinking about. Well, I think I'm sure you know somebody that's in their late 50s, and all of a sudden something happens that out of the blue, and they're not able to do the stuff that they planned on doing when they retire. So when we're sitting here in pretty good health, you're like, why do I want to work another year and take a chance that that thing happens to me before I get a chance to enjoy what I've worked for?
Yeah, I think you're right, Rich. I think it might even happen to a friend or a family member, and you look in the mirror yourself, and you say, I don't want to, be that person. It's I've had people where they've taken 2 or 3 social security checks and passed away, and people say, gosh, he worked his whole life to get to that point and passed away at 63 and a half or whatever. Um,
Right.
and so, we don't have unlimited time. And I think that's what we think about when we're 30, 40, 50 years old. If we always have more time to do it later, and then you wake up one day and you get closer to that finish line of maybe 60 or 61, and you're like, you think you got 10 more years, but in your mind you might, but in reality, you're giving up something for those 10 years, right?
Right.
So
Okay. So without getting specific about anybody's finances, what do you think? We talked a little bit before we actually started recording here. So, uh, in Robbie and my situation, I'm not letting any secrets out of the bag. We have a mortgage. How big of a deal do you think it is to not even have a mortgage when you retire?
I've always thought it's a good goal. It's a great goal to be debt free, to have very little of expenses going out the door, if possible. The one asset that you can reasonably justify keeping is your home mortgage, because number one, your home is an appreciating asset. It goes up in value. And as we were talking earlier, if your interest rate is a little bit less that you're paying on your mortgage than your rate of return on your investments, then you shouldn't be in a big hurry to be paying that off. a lot of people have mortgages from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago that are in the 2 to 3, maybe 3.5% rate. And it's almost a little bit, I don't want to say free money, but it's pretty easy money to keep that mortgage alive and going and let your other investments grow over the next 5 or 6 years. With that said, when you're working, if you were working today and you're taking $200,000 or $300,000 out of an investment to pay off the mortgage before I retire next month, you're really compounding your tax problem because you'd be better off paying off that mortgage at 64 or 5 or 6 when you don't have income. So
Okay.
there's some factors, there's some strategy that we help clients with to pay it off at the right time, maybe, or maybe pay it down over a 3 or 4 year period of time to stretch out that withdrawal out of an IRA account instead of
Kind of
taking
stretches out
300.
the tax burden a little bit too, right?
Stretches out the tax burden. It stretches a lot of things out, but there's some just simple things that we've done over the last few years of helping clients get to the point of having that mortgage paid off. But maybe it's not just taking a big lump sum out and paying it off before I retire, because you've got a lot of earned income there your last year or two of retirement, or your last half year of retire or working, I should say. You just
Right.
don't want to make your tax burden more.
Okay. So, and again, I shared with you that's one of Robbie's concerns is that we have this mortgage. And do you think that that's one of the things that keeps people from retiring is that they just have this fear of any debt at all?
Sort of. I think the bigger issue would be how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. So the mortgage isn't really a problem. I think it's a value that when people say I want to be debt free, that's a great value. That's a good virtue to have. Um, but
Yeah,
it's
it's kind
more,
of freeing too, right? Like it's freeing in somebody's head to say, any money that I take out that I need in retirement, it's almost because I
yeah,
want it, not
yeah,
because I have to put it on a bill of some sort.
absolutely, Rich. You hit it on the head. It's freeing. It frees up your. It's it even if it were 0% interest rate, it would still be a black cloud over your head because you still have to pay it every month, right? So it frees up your psychology, your thinking, and any money I take out is more for my. I already got my basic needs taken care of, but anything I take out is kind of for my wants and my fun stuff. Um, so it kind of frees up your thinking when you don't have to pay bills every month, right? Or a lot of bills. And so um, it's just kind of, I think you hit it on the head. It just kind of frees things up. When you've only got a small amount of bills that you have to pay every month versus a lot, even if you had a lot of money and even if you had justified enough money to borrow the money. Um,
Okay.
so
All right. So, and I know you deal with, and you're going to deal with me after I retire. So, when you have retirees that come in to see you, let's say 6 months after they retire, a year after they retire, in all your years, how many people have you had come to you and say, I retired too early?
that's a great question, Rich. I don't think I've ever had anybody say that. I had a
Wow.
lot of,
Okay.
I've never had anybody, I've had a lot of people say I should have retired a couple years earlier.
Right.
And here again, and I usually follow up and ask them, why would you say that? And they say, well, something is either, it's not always health related, but it's just maybe they don't have the energy to do what they thought they were going to do. People say, well, I'm going to go fishing and boating and golfing every day. I mean, I work hard. I'm going to do it. You just don't have the energy to do that. I see people playing golf 1 or 2 days a week. Maybe they play pickleball 1 or 2 days a week. But I myself, I find it that I don't have the energy level to do those kind of things every day.
Right.
And so I don't think I've had anybody that I can recall that, regretted retiring. I think a lot of people wish they retired a year or two earlier. In fact, I was reading an article that most people work a year or two too long. I think
Okay.
I don't recall the article or the study, but it was just they were talking about in general people they have a little bit of a regret for working maybe a year or two too long because of I got a little extra money or I got my big bonus or I got this, and they wait a little too long, and what happens is they wake up one day and they just don't have the energy to do the things they wanted to do. They've got some, and it's not bad when you're 65 years old. I know a lot of people that are, my dad's 83 years old and he still bikes and golfs 3 days a week, but he also takes a lot of naps.
Okay.
Um,
And he's free to do that, right?
and
Because he
he's
doesn't have
free to
any other
do that.
schedule.
Yeah. But I'm actually, maybe it's because I'm getting a little older, but I'm kind of buying into that too. That, a lot of people worry about running out of money. And I think we worry about that way too much. Um, I think human beings are very adaptive and they'll find ways to scale back or cut back or find ways to, you know, um, I just think I'm buying into
Running out
everybody.
of time's a bigger deal, right?
Yeah, that's well said. Running out of time is a bigger deal than we all worry about money because we're designed that way. We don't want to run out. We don't want to be a burden to our kids. We don't want to reduce our lifestyle and our dreams, right? But a lot of that I think is wasted energy because it's the time that we don't have.
Right. Okay. All right. So I guess staying on the idea of people that are retired and now they're coming to you and saying, okay, I planned on spending X. Do you have more people coming to you and say, can I afford to spend more? Or do they come to you and saying, okay, I don't really need as much as I thought I needed?
Well, we all want to spend more if we could. Um, it's hard to. There's
Maybe
two types.
wanna is not the right, like need more or they
Yeah.
need less.
Well, I think there's the people I deal with. They're savers or spenders. There's two types of people. They're good savers or they tend to spend too much. And it's hard to help the people that have always been spenders because they always more begets more, and it's just never enough.
And it's
Um,
just stuff.
it's just stuff. It's just another cruise. It's just another vacation. Not that those are bad. It's just that it just never is enough. And so a good example is if they won $100,000 in the lottery, it wouldn't last long because they wish they would have won $200,000. I
Okay.
think being content, the people that I run into that are typically they're good savers. They typically know their budget, meaning they know what's coming in, what's going out. They typically have a better cash flow handle on things. Um, I think those people are the ones that can honestly spend a little bit more in retirement because they have a handle on it. That's how I see it.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So that kind of led me to maybe the next question. So on the idea of a budget, I've never really been a budget guy, but I'm not gonna lie and say the last year or so I haven't tried to get my arms around what I spend versus what I bring in. Um, in your mind, how is that critical to like making the decision? Like you need to know that. And have you found people that have said, okay, I'm retiring at 60. I know, or 65 or whatever the number is. I don't know what I spend every month, but I know I'm going to be fine. And then they come to you and say, I had no idea.
yeah, that's where we try to prepare them, Rich, for a year or two from retirement. They really need to have a handle on where their money is going to be coming from. Is it going to be coming from some Social Security? Do they have a pension? Do they have any rental income? Some people have the desire to work part time in retirement. Um, if they know where the money is coming in, they more importantly they have to know where the money is going. And I tell people all the time, if you want to go to movies and spend money on popcorn your whole retirement, that's totally up to you. But I need to know as a financial advisor, I need to know within a few $100s, how much does it take for you just to live? I'm not talking about the vacations. I'm not talking about the wants and wishes. I'm just talking about your needs and your basic needs: food, shelter, clothing, and water, and things like that. If a client can, or a prospective client can give me a rough number of it's going to take me $5,000 a month, I already know that. Then we can develop a plan to give them some peace of mind and security of that they're going to be on track. And then we look at how much extra do they have and how much their investments can produce in excess return. And that allows them to have more wants. The the boat, the vacations, the family time, the fun things in life. But if they don't know what their expenses are, I'm not a budget expert, so I don't tell people if they come in with a budget sheet and it says that they spend $200 on movies. I don't care. That's what they want to do. I
Right.
want to spend $200 a month on maybe golf versus go to the movies. Um, that's not really. I don't tell people what they can spend their money on, but I kind of recommend that they need to have a number within a few $100s of what it takes them to live every month. And if they can do that, then you can start developing a plan to give them peace of mind on how on track they are, what probability they have of succeeding with all of that.
So yeah, basically we'll give you X because that's what X takes for you to be able to live in your house and have food to eat. But X plus Y is giving you the fun money.
That's exactly right. And there's been lots of people write books about if you take 4% out of your nest egg, your investments, take 5% of your investments, you can do a real simple calculation, but it doesn't really narrow down the changes in somebody's life. Like, I need to buy a car in 3 years. Okay, well,
Right.
that's going to change that. I need to, plan for a one-time real big. We're going to do a big family vacation. I've seen a lot of people say, well, in 2 years we're taking everybody to Hawaii, or we're going to go to Europe, and it's going to cost $40,000 for 10 family members, or whatever.
Right.
Um, a lot of people are doing that, but that's why when you come to somebody like myself, or I recommend that everyone find somebody that they trust that can walk them through and have the knowledge and expertise to show them some more in-depth and dynamic projections of how these things in life happen. So um, it's just a great way to work with somebody that you trust that they can walk you through that, Rich.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you have people that are late 60s, 70s, and they're working some sort of part time job. Are they, in your experience, are more people doing that because they need the money, or are they doing it because they need the socialization?
That's another really good question. I think it's both. I think there are some people that need the money. I can think of one nice lady that I have. She works part time. She probably doesn't necessarily need to work, but she does like to go on some cruises with her friends. So
So she's
it
using
helps.
it for more for the fun money aspect of it.
Yeah, it kind of both. More for the fun money, but also just it gives her her own peace of mind that she has a little extra in the bank, right?
Okay.
A lot of people, they're doing it because they like the interaction. They like the social interaction. They like to have a purpose of getting up and going somewhere 3 or 4 days a week, or maybe for 4 or 5 hours a day. I find a lot of people that are working part time probably mathematically don't need to,
Okay.
but they just like the fact that they have that social interaction with people. And honestly, it keeps people young. It keeps your mind sharp. And there's part-time work used to be frowned on back in the 80s. Back in the 80s, if you owned two homes, one in the Midwest and one down south, man, you made it. You were
Right.
the sign of success. And now there's a lot of people that are working part-time because it's not so much frowned upon, and it's it's healthy for you too. A lot of times.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like maybe it's not necessarily your purpose to work a second job, but you feel better about yourself if you're talking to people and maybe husband or wife at home's great, but other people like and if you can help people in the meantime, even if that's just helping the guy at the drive-through, right? That still makes you feel like you're contributing and having a purpose.
Absolutely. And a lot of people get to a point in their career, their job, it's either way too much stress. They just don't they've hit kind of a not a dead end, but a roadblock as far as it's just wearing them out. And a lot of times that part-time job, it can help people just not so much a sense of purpose, but just seeing people and interacting with people, and just it's some people just feel better going to work and doing something and being productive in their life, right?
Okay, so again, kind of focus on somebody that retired, let's say 6 or months or a year ago. How often do you have them come in and say, "I'm bored"?
Uh, that hasn't happened either.
Really?
There,
Okay.
when people retire, we try to really hold their hand through that process because, like I said earlier, some people they're fine. They're retired. I check in with them every 3 or 4 months, and they're fine. Other people, we know they're just a little nervous about retiring, and so we stay in touch with them a lot. But they typically don't say they're bored. They usually have to get their schedule out to come see me because they're so busy doing other things. And so it's kind of funny, like, you have a calendar and a schedule. It's like, I'll just use a person, let's say his name's Bob, but I say, Bob, you never had to look at your calendar to come in for an appointment when you were working. Now you have to check your calendar to see if you're available to come in and you're retired. He's like, Derek, you don't understand. I've got so many things to do. I've got this coffee club to go to. I got to see my grandkids play ball. I got to go to this board meeting because they want me on. I got to go see my other retired buddies because we have coffee every day or lunch or what have you. And it's kind of, I've never had anybody say that they're moping around because they're bored.
Okay.
It's that they're almost rich. They're almost busier.
Too busy.
I don't want, yeah, maybe too busy. Yeah, they've got a lot of stuff on their calendar,
Okay. Well, that's
which is
good.
good. Which is good. I like that because it's here again. It keeps them busy and healthy and happy. And um,
Right.
I want to throw one point in there too. I read an article too. It was by a mutual fund company that did a study through MIT, and 1 out of 8 people get dementia over age 75, some form of dementia. And the one thing, it's not going to prevent it, but the one thing that delays it more is social interaction.
Okay.
The second thing was walking 30 minutes a day. So if you can walk 30 minutes a day and have social interaction with other people, it'll slow that process, that aging process to some degree. They found out in that study. And you probably heard of people, they retire and they just sit home and watch TV
Yep.
and flip the
Yep.
TV around and everything, and they don't have interaction with people. And what happens is they don't think, they don't problem solve, they don't laugh, they don't cry, and when they don't do that with their friends and it's more importantly, it's with other people.
Right.
It's not just you know reading a book and laughing about what you read or something, or crying about a book you read or something, but it's with other people because it makes your mind work.
Yeah. And I read an article just this last week, and if I could find it again, I'd share it out. But there's something about if you're a person that worries about getting old, then that's the person that those people are more likely to develop dementia than someone who's just like engaged in their life and they're not worried about,
Yes,
it's just a part of, getting older is part of just the natural scheme of things. But if you sit in like, oh, I'm worried that 75 is going to mean that I'm not going to be chair bound, then you're more likely to be 75 and chair bound.
correct. And if you just get out and live this part of your life and this season of your life, it's different than your 40s and 50s, but it's the season that you're in. And if you're right before retirement or in retirement, if you can just live each day and
Right.
don't take it for granted and not worry about it, I think that's the big key. It just it will help delay that. I know that I've seen a lot of my very well off affluent clients, and some of them have worked part time, but the common denominator is they're active and they don't sit around much. They're around a lot of other people, and you don't have to be a social butterfly and all that kind of stuff, but it's just go play pickleball with your buddy, go take a walk with your wife and another couple, or go out to dinner.
Right.
You don't have to spend gobs of money, but you can go out and socialize and be with people.
Okay. All right. Well, Derek, I think that's a pretty good wrap for this first time. Maybe, let's see if and don't anybody that's watched this far, if you have any questions for Derek, I'll gladly. I mean, he watches the channel, so he'll maybe see him in the comments, And if this is something that people want to see, I'll try to get with Derek again, and we can do it again, and maybe have some more specific questions. Um, and Derek, I appreciate your willingness, and I know that you and I are in a similar stage of our life, which maybe helps us connect and makes you more willing to do this kind of thing. And again, I appreciate you coming on and just having this conversation. I want to have the most information for when I decide to pull the plug. And my goal, and Robbie and my goal, is just to get that information out there so our friends and family can have it, and even people we don't know. Let's as us Gen Xers start to move into retirement, let's make the most of it.
Well, Rich, I want to thank you and Robbie. You do a great job on the show, and thank you so much for having me. And if I can be on again down the road and be of help to you or other people, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Derek, and everybody else. Leave a comment for us. Yeah, I try not to say like and subscribe to the channel, but if you're there and you can do it, that'd be great. And I'll link to another one of the interviews I've done with the retiree up here. So thanks for watching our channel, and God bless.